Hey everyone, I'm Mike Simon from PC World, and I have here the HTC U12 Plus, and let's take a look at it. It's a 2018 phone, so it has a Snapdragon 845 processor, it has 6 gigabytes of RAM, it has 2 ROMs, 64 gig and 128 gig internal storage, as well as expandable storage with an SD card. It has a dual camera, which is a first for HTC flagship. Last year's U11 had a single 12 megapixel camera, if I remember correctly. This one has a 16 megapixel main camera with a f1.7 aperture, and it is paired with a 12 megapixel camera, the secondary. It has 2x optical zoom and 10x digital zoom. It does portrait mode on the front and the back. So that means there's 2 cameras on the front, 2 8 megapixel identical sensors, and you can do selfie portraits, and you can do rear portraits. You can adjust the bokeh blur before and after. So as you know, that's a neat feature if you're into taking selfies. There's a couple new colors. There's a translucent blue, which you can actually kind of see the internals of the camera, which is interesting. So you can see the battery in there. You can see some of the sensors and some things working. It's just like a neat little touch. The blue is, it's a bit darker than last year, which was really, very bright and very kind of vibrant. And keeps a similar form factor, but we have a 6-inch or 5.99-inch screen on the HTC U12 Plus. But the form factor is very similar because now it's 18:9. It's a touch taller and a little bit thinner, a little bit narrower than the HTC U11, but it's pretty close. If you hold the two in your hand, we got it's pretty close to the dimensions of the HTC U11. The big differences we have are with the sides of the phone, which is interesting. So we have same volume and power buttons, but they're not really buttons on the HTC U12 Plus. By the way, there's no HTC U12. It's the Plus, but it's only the Plus. They're marketing it to compete with the Samsung S9 Plus rather than separating from its own S9, from its own U12. So there's not a 5.5-inch model of the U12. It's just the U12 Plus, which is just a shade under 6 inches. So we have the buttons here. We still have power and volume, but they're not actual buttons. They're kind of like haptic sensing buttons, like it was with the home button before. So when you touch them, you get a little bit of feedback. And there's not really much give. It's a slight button press, but you're really it's almost like you're touching the edge of the phone. You'll feel a little vibration in your fingers. And what's interesting here is, so if your phone is totally dead, you have to charge it for a minute or two before the buttons will do anything because they need power to work. So you press the button, unlock it, and HTC has also upgraded the Edge Sense, which is the feature that you saw in the Pixel 2 that Google pushed over to its phone. It's back here, and there's quite a bit more features that you can do. So let's just take a look at the settings first. So same as before, you go into settings and you're going to see something called Edge Sense. You can turn it on and off right from a toggle right without going into the menu. So we'll shut it off for now first. And now there's 3 options here. We have squeeze like before, short squeeze and a long squeeze to do 2 different things. There's a hold gesture, which we'll get to later on, and there's also a double tap gesture, which means that you can physically tap the side of the phone to do things as well. So first let's turn on Edge Sense as a whole. So we have each one here is customizable. You can turn on and off. Double tap, you can turn on and off short squeeze and long squeeze. When you turn on the long squeeze, you get, again, to do the setup mode. And I'm just going to run through it really quick here. Oh, sorry about that. One more time. So you squeeze, and then it's going to fill up with, try not to hit the buttons. So you squeeze, and you can see the little animation on the side working. And it's ready to launch. So if you go inside the long squeeze, we'll start there. There's a whole bunch of options here, just like before. A couple of new ones. There's a back button. So if you hit that, you can just squeeze your phone if you're in Safari or settings or something, just to go back a screen, which is cool. And Alexa's not on here, but HTC says that just like the HTC U11, there will be an Alexa dedicated app, and you will be able to launch it just like before. But if we have the camera and Google Assistant and screenshots, flashlight, things like that. Same thing with the short squeeze. Pretty much the same options. Also a back button there, music controls, Wi-Fi, hotspot, things like that, depending on how hard you or how much you press your phone. There's a quick squeeze and there's a long squeeze, and you'll see the little visual kind of response there when you do both. So the new gestures are hold and double tap. So the hold gesture, you can turn on and off. There is a smart rotate and a smart dim, which we've seen on other phones as well that do this kind of automatically. What the U12 Plus does is when you're holding it, it'll recognize the grip of your hand, and it will keep the screen on if you prefer. So it won't, if you're reading a long article or something, it won't dim automatically, which is a problem on some phones. And it will also not rotate if you move your position. So if you have, we've seen this before, if you have screen lock turned off, you sit in a position in bed or you turn it and the screen automatically rotates and you're going like this. And this doesn't do that. If you have that option on, it recognizes the way you're holding the phone and it won't rotate. If you take your phone, you turn it this way, it knows that. Let me go into something that has, so if you're doing this, so you turn it, it knows if you take your hands off that position, you turn it and it rotates. Do that one more time. So you're holding it, stays in portrait mode, take your fingers off, hold it the way you would normally hold a landscape phone, and it turns. So that's pretty neat. Back to settings, and there's one more new thing in EdgeSense called double tap. And what that does, it physically lets you tap the side of the phone to do things. So there's a couple of different options, same as before, back and one-handed mode is the default, and I'll show you how that works. So if you're in your, if you're looking at an app, you just double tap the side of the phone. Let's try this one more time. So you have to be holding it. And it automatically goes into one-handed mode, which kind of shrinks the screen down so you can reach it with your thumb. If you notice, I tap the right side of the phone. If you tap the left side of the phone, it goes on that side. So it knows which side you're working on, and it responds accordingly. And you can set that up with a bunch of different options here. You can launch the navigation bar, the camera app, the flashlight, screenshots, things like that. So it's just one more little shortcut that HTC has built into the U12 Plus that, is everyone going to use it? Maybe not, but it's a cool little feature. It's a little add-on to, what is already a real high-end flagship phone with that Snapdragon processor and all the specs that you get with it. So we're going to run this through our testing, and we'll have a full review in a couple of weeks. It's going to launch. But from what I see, HTC has taken a good phone and gave it some nice upgrades. And we'll take a look at it in a couple of weeks.